Tilray and Canopy, both cannabis stocks, up today after a report in the U.S. that Donald Trump could reclassify marijuana as a less dangerous drug. Here to talk about that is Dan Ahrens, Managing Director of Advisor Shares. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So this has been widely anticipated, of course, but what does a federal reclassification do for these companies when they want to borrow money, for example?
That's just one of the many aspects that comes into play. It's a very, very big change for the United States and cannabis at a federal level. It's very different than Canada, for instance. And what they're talking about doing, and it's been talked about for a few years now, is reclassifying cannabis from a DEA Schedule I drug, which has no medical use, and it's usually used for dangerous opioids and other drugs, down to a Schedule III drug, which typically is a prescription type of medication. But there's a lot more ramifications here. Cannabis companies, plant-touching THC businesses in the United States, can't do regular banking. And tied into that is these stocks can't be custodied or traded at major bank wirehouses, all the major brokerage firms like Merrill Lynch, Bank of America, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, BNY Mellon, and many others, and can't list on major exchanges. So there's an awful lot of ramifications that come down from this rescheduling that we're now finally expecting. So I see not only today's big stock market moves, but multiple legs up as this goes through the process.
Okay, you talked about the stock being able to trade. You talked about money borrowing. What about tax implications?
Great question. Thank you. These cannabis companies in the United States are subject to something called 280E taxes. What that means is they're basically taxed like narcotics traffickers. They can't deduct any business expenses. Now, when this announcement that we expect perhaps as early as Monday, through an executive order from President Donald Trump, comes down, we don't know what all the details look like. Is it going to have safe harbor in there for exchange listing, for banking? And what is the timeline for removing these very unfair 280E taxes where these businesses can't deduct any business expenses at all? So when we get that removed, and it definitely will get removed if this is now a Schedule III drug, it has a huge impact on these U.S. cannabis companies' bottom line.
Okay. There are also state-level regulations for cannabis companies. So how does a federal reclassification affect what happens at the state level?
Well, we don't know what everything looks like quite yet, but what happens here is, we have close to 40 states that have medical cannabis, and this rescheduling will very easily allow medical use cannabis nationwide. Now, we also expect guidance from the Department of Justice, from Attorney General Pam Bondi, perhaps, that will support states' rights. And what I mean there are, we have almost half the states in the United States that now have adult use cannabis legalized. And what's going to happen is, with this federal guidance, we should see that they will defer to states' rights, and individual states can allow for adult use cannabis, very importantly, without it being contrary to federal law like it is right now. Right now, the federal government is primarily just willing to look the other way, but these companies are still contrary to federal law and therefore can't bank, can't be custodied at most major brokerages, can't be listed on major exchanges, etc. So we're still going to have a state-by-state regulatory regime. And for people with questions about that, they don't need to look a lot farther than the alcohol industry. There are different state laws for alcohol all over the United States, and different cities and counties and others.
Okay, one last question for you. And how do investors take advantage of this reclassification? What can they look at? Have they missed the boat today?
I don't think anybody's missed the boat because we haven't had an official announcement from the White House yet. It could come as early as Monday, perhaps some other time next week, or certainly before the end of the year, we expect. But today's big move was just based on a Washington Post article that comes from very, very good sources and has very good backup. But we don't have the official announcement yet. So I think there's going to be multiple legs up. Here at Advisor Shares, we manage the largest cannabis fund in the world, the MSOS U.S. Cannabis ETF. And we also have another one that has a global strategy that includes the Canadian stocks, even UK stocks and Israeli stocks. So one fund that's all about the U.S. only, and one fund that is a global cannabis strategy.
All right, Dan Ahrens, I got to leave it there. So thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.